miss him more than maybe they think, although I think Luther Burden's exploding and Colton Loveland. But I thought, they got a kid out of Connecticut, kind of a interesting wide receiver. I'm like, they actually address the room. They go to a stadium. There's less wind. Offensively, they got the tight ends, the back. I kind of like Buffalo. Chicago's funny because everybody knew, get a rush in. And they got better on offense. They found scheme fits. I like the fact they got high character guys that were healthy in college. Like, so much I like. But the Bears draft largely got panned. And I've said, I don't like my coach having too much power in the draft, but I don't know if I love their GM. I love their coach. Your overall feel on what Chicago did?
I'm not surprised that they went with Thieneman over the edge rushers that were available there at 25. Because right now, if you look at their depth chart before the draft started, safety was a bigger need than edge rusher, even to play in week 1. There's no one you feel good about next to Kobe Bryant back there. And so them picking Thieneman because they just thought that he wasn't going to be there and he's a special talent in that range, I totally get. Logan Jones is going to be somebody that's overdrafted by them because he fits their scheme and not a lot of others. So I assume on a consensus board, he was lower than where the Bears took him. When you get past that and you look at the edge rushers who were available, Kieran Crawford is a guy from Auburn that I really liked. He has a ton of juice off the edge. I really liked the Raiders getting him where they did. He physically is not a player the Bears would draft. He has short arms. Dennis Allen is not going to do that. And so the edge rushers, like who was available in that range, there weren't a lot of guys that fit their preferences. And so them going with the Roush to kind of lean further into their offensive identity, that's not necessarily surprising. The one that's harder for me to get behind is I can't do the 4-3 kick returner in the 3rd round. Like just give me interior offensive line depth or something. Like that's one where even if you're trying to spin it, that one's a little bit tougher for me. But the first 3 picks and how they align with the Bears' identity and their needs, I think those you can make a strong argument for.
Yeah. I feel like I'm ready to move past the whole pre-draft chatter. It usually goes like this. First you have all the build-up, then the draft itself, then the immediate reactions right after, then a short phase where people still talk about it, and finally everyone just forgets about the draft and moves on, right? And during that whole time, there's this constant urge to judge every team's picks, to say things like, oh, they reached for that guy, or I can't believe they skipped on this player, or how could they pass on that one? Honestly, I don't think that kind of criticism makes much sense to me. I get it, people wanted them to go all in on defense, 100%. That was the big expectation going in. I understand that. But when you boil it all down, the team's front office came to their own conclusions about what they needed and what talent was realistically within reach. And that's the path they chose to follow. Along the way, they also thought, we can keep improving our offense and make it even stronger. And I've said this before, I don't want to go off on a long repeated rant, but here's the thing, the real, ultimate superpower of this offense is that it genuinely has the potential to be historically great when it can fully execute Ben Johnson's vision. And when Caleb Williams can run that system while also doing all the extra, off-script stuff he does, this offense is positioned to be unbelievably, insanely dominant and near impossible to stop. That, in the end, is this team's true superpower. Just think about what they achieved in Detroit with Jared Goff. Don't get me wrong, I think Jared Goff is an excellent quarterback. I believe he can operate an offense at the highest tier. But he simply cannot do some of the things Caleb Williams is capable of. And look, it's also possible that Caleb may never run an offense as smoothly as Jared Goff, because that's Goff's specialty. That's why Goff is in the NFL earning the money he does, right? He can conduct an offense at a higher operational level than, say, a Jalen Hurts, a Lamar Jackson, or a Josh Allen. That's because he doesn't have the same elite physical tools. But those other quarterbacks can make up ground because of what their athleticism allows them to do. Jalen, Josh, Lamar, Caleb, pick whichever example you like. And so the better Caleb gets at simply running the offense, at bringing Ben Johnson's vision to life, and then blending that with his improv skills, that's exactly how we ended up with the Patrick Mahomes version we saw under Andy Reid. It was like, wow, when you can do both, it's mind-blowing. We always talk about dual-threat quarterbacks. But when you really stop to think about it, first of all, I'm not even sure that phrase means the same thing anymore, because the NFL has completely transformed. Once upon a time, that term made perfect sense. Nowadays? Not so much. But in reality, we don't have many quarterbacks who can truly RU and an offense at the highest level and also be mobile and do all the off-script, improvisational stuff. In the past, when we talked about dual-threat quarterbacks, it was usually because some passers were either statues who couldn't move at all, or they were super mobile but lacked accuracy. Sure, they could throw, but they weren't precise. Or they could never quite execute the structured offense. For instance, Kirk Cousins could run an offense better than Michael Vick, even though Vick could obviously do 1,000 other things on the field. I'm just talking about pure operational ability here. So when you have a quarterback who can run the offense at the highest operational level and also do all the things Caleb can do, you essentially catapult straight to the moon, man. You just keep rising and rising. That's really what being a dual-threat quarterback will ultimately come to mean, the quarterback who can execute an offense efficiently, pre-snap, post-snap, everything, as well as the guys I'm purposely naming here because they're not flashy, they're not seen as special or elite, yet they do certain things at such a high level that they've been able to stay in the NFL, the Kirk Cousinses, the Phillip Riverses, the Jared Goffs, and so on. And that's exactly why I showed you that clip with Greg Cosell before, where he talked about the importance of running an offense at the highest level. We're forgetting how crucial that is in the NFL. We're forgetting how valuable it is because we're so obsessed with all the other flashy aspects. So if Ben Johnson can keep building and strengthening this offense with a piece like Caleb Williams, all you have to do is get Caleb up to speed operationally, and you've just constructed the most dangerous offense in NFL history. You've built it. And in many ways, it could become the next evolution of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, Mahomes 2.0, you know? But that's not just about the off-script heroics. It's not just about making incredible throws and being the ice-cold closer. It goes beyond that. It's about running an insanely efficient offense. When that's your foundation, and then you layer the extra stuff on top, it's game, set, match. It's simply over. It's just over. Everyone else in the NFL, if you're a fan of another team, or you just don't like the Bears, your only real, big hope is that Ben Johnson has too big of an ego and can't quite pull everything together, or that Caleb Williams will never be accurate enough or operationally in sync with the offense the way you'd really need him to be. Because that's the only saving grace. If they achieve that, again, I just don't know how you stop them. We saw alone in Detroit how unstoppable that offense was. And again, Jared Goff runs an offense at the absolute highest level, man. At an insanely high level. An insanely high level. And in many ways, that was such a stark difference between J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold, you know? That was a huge gap, which makes total sense. One is an experienced veteran, and the other was a first-year starter. So those things matter a lot. A whole lot. And that's why I just don't see the criticism. I don't see them drafting players just because people say, this is your specific need. They got the players they wanted, the ones they concluded were right for them, and then they picked other specific players with the mindset, we can keep reinforcing and widening the margin of error on this offense that is going to be our superpower anyway. That approach goes a long way. But those are just my thoughts. I'd really love to hear yours. What do you all think about the Chicago Bears still catching flack for their draft strategy? Do you trust Chicago to build a Super Bowl caliber roster? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree, let's start some discussions. Let's get into some debates. But in the end, let's just have some fun. And please do think about subscribing. We've built an amazing community here, and I would genuinely love to see you become part of it. I want to create something we all feel connected to. Something we're all really excited to belong to. I think we're on our way to doing that. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, it really helps with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.